Hi, Chomi. So, welcome to another episode of Meet Me in My Corner. I am Dr. K and I'm your host. So, today we are still on the journey to the aisle because I'm only getting married like next year. And that's the phase of my life that I'm still in, but we're alone. Yes, it's just you and I. I have decided to abruptly stop seeing guests or stop having guests on the show because I feel like we've had enough conversations that have been valuable. And I'm so grateful to the people that actually made it to the show and contributed to the conversations that I really wanted us to have. I hope for a lot of you, it has been a useful resource. And for some of you who are not on that journey but love being in my corner, I hope that you will one day come back to it and say, wow, I really love those gems. I appreciated each and every conversation. It's also actually contributed to my own personal journey. But I'm in a phase where now I just want to just be alone. I just want it to be just you and I for the last three episodes of the season. Yes, I am ending the season again very soon. And then it'll be back to regular programming where you know me all up in pink. Okay. But yeah, I really had it in my heart to share something with you, and I wanted to do it just on my own. So, if you've seen the title, it should be Grieving Now What? I hope I haven't changed it. I change my mind a lot. I'm very indecisive, by the way, which has made this process so cumbersome. I confuse a lot of people with my indecisiveness or indecision. Yeah, I wish I was a more like clear cut person. But anyway, so during the process of putting this together, um, you know, you saw, well, I don't know if you saw, but I was just very excited. I had like such a great light. I mean, I entered August with so much happiness and optimism and so much hope for the future. And I really threw myself into wedding planning, which now is not as fun as it was then, because now it's becoming a little bit more real because we're a few months out before the wedding. And I actually wish I gave myself enough time. But anyway, going back to it, when I started August, I began it with so much optimism, right? I was a month into my fitness journey, which I'm going to speak about in the next episode. And yeah, I was just feeling really on top of the world. And I just knew I was going to do this. And I had invested so much in doing this. Might not have had the best return on the investment. I think some of you are missing the old Meet Me in My Corner setup, and that's what you really preferred. But it's coming back, don't worry. But anyway, yeah, so that was a huge part of August. And then the 25th of August happened where I lost my baby cousin. And I call him a baby, but I think he wouldn't have liked that right now because he had grown so much since the last time I saw him, which was in December on Christmas Day. No, actually, I saw him on the 26th. Yeah, and I'm so glad we saw each other, and I'm so glad we did what we did that day. But anyway, so I lost my 14-year-old cousin. He feels like a baby to me because he's the same age as my niece, and he's in the same age group as my nephew, and they're all, chill together, and they're my babies. So losing him came as a huge shock, huge shock, huge shock, huge. It was very abrupt. I remember I woke up on that day feeling so good and optimistic because I finally had one piece of the puzzle that I'm trying to build for my career because my career has been like a huge pain point for me, just trying to figure out what is truly my purpose. And that morning I woke up, wanting to do research, wanting to innovate, wanting to be creative. And I loved it. I was like, I loved it so much. And we were planning for my partner to travel the next day because this was a Sunday and he was traveling on the Monday. So he had planned for my mom to actually come join me at my house to help me with Nia, which is so funny because when I travel, I never do that for my partner. And he always does that for me. It just shows the kind of consideration that he has. I promise you guys, I am a good mom. I'm just sometimes really, really busy, and he's really considerate of that. And yeah, so anyway, um, that day we then had to go to Pretoria to go fetch her. And I wanted to go to Pretoria with them because he was going to go do it on his own, but I wanted to join them because them being him and Nehemiah, my daughter, because we were also going to see my mom's kitchen. She renovated the kitchen. Really impressed. Really, really dope. So anyway, I was really in high spirits that morning. I also had breakfast with a friend just before I left, and we exchanged gifts. So, really good. We got to my mom's house. She was so happy to show us her kitchen. We were so excited that we're going to share the week together, and just be with each other because she loves being with her little granddaughter. And yeah, so we spent a long time actually that day in her house, which we normally don't do. We normally like go pick her up. Um, at most, we'd spend like maybe 30 minutes, but we spent like hours. Also because Dumelo's watching Formula One. My man is obsessed with Formula One, right? So anyway, when it was now time to leave, she decided to wash the dishes. And usually, I would have been a little bit irritable because it's taking so long because I'm an impatient person. But I wasn't. I was just so relaxed. I was so calm. I was just like, okay, I was just so happy. Like, oh, we're gonna go, whatever, and yeah, it's gonna be great. And then we finally get into the car. Literally, I feel like it took an hour to wash those dishes, but I understood, She has a new kitchen. She really wants to take care of it. Well, my mom takes care of her stuff really, like really well. So anyway, we get in the car, and we approach, just before we approach the highway, yeah, just before we get onto the highway back to our side of town, because she stays in Pretoria and we live in Midrand, we get a call. Well, she gets a call. Um, and at first, it wasn't confirmed, but it was a destabilizing call. Like, we really were in a panic. Um, Shame, poor Dumelo. He was like in the car, just wondering what to do. Her and I we couldn't think straight. We were driving in circles because now we have to change our route, right? We have to make a detour and go to where the tragedy had happened. So we are, trying to figure it out. So we then make a decision. Let's just stop at the garage. If you from another country, you don't know what a garage is, a fueling station. We stop at the fueling station, and then we just try think. I made a big mistake at this point in that I called my sister, who was very close to him, and I shared the load with her without finding out first in what position she's in. I feel like I could have been a little bit more gracious in the way I delivered some of the news. But anyway, so we at the fueling station. My daughter's in the back. She's having the time of her life. My mom is just like stressed out. You can see like she's just trying to think because it's her baby sister's child, right? And we are a very small family, like very small. You can count us in a row. Like we're very small. So we're very close knit. Um, but anyway, so then we get another call. And the other call is to tell us that he's trapped in the car. And once I heard that, it started to make sense to me. Oh no, that call was to let us know that the ambulance left, but didn't leave with him. So I kind of knew at that point. And I looked at my mom and I just said to her, that's not good. And a few minutes later, then it was confirmed. And it was very, very shocking, completely shocking. Um, you hear people speak about losing somebody abruptly, but until you're in that situation, you won't really understand it. It was just a shock. You just feel like you're dreaming. I still feel like I'm dreaming now. It's been a month. Um, and it's crazy it's been a month. It's crazy to me. It's been a month. It feels like it happened just yesterday. But yeah, so then we make our way to the scene, and it was really hard. It was very hard to be there. It was really, really hard. If you have ever had to face the misfortune of losing somebody due to an accident or due to anything that's unnatural, you will know how difficult it is to be in that situation. You're kind of like a spectacle. People are like walking all around and they just talking, and it's like there's a crowd of people. Not nice, not nice at all. Yeah, that lack of privacy in that time, and just hearing people speak, so flippantly. Oh yeah, ho na le motho o tlhokofetse. And it's just like, oh yeah, but like that's our child. Um, and obviously, like there was tape around the scene. It just felt very eerie. And the whole time it was like the tragedy was there. It was like in front of us, right? And us as a family, amongst other people who got onto the scene, we're just looking. I try to explain this, but I'm still struggling to articulate it. And I think over time, I find a way to articulate this in the best way possible because I want to really paint the picture. It was like we were sitting in an audience waiting for something to happen. It was like we're sitting for a production. I can't explain it, but it was just very eerie. Just like standing there and just like looking at the car the whole time. We're just like looking. I'm very grateful and thankful that he wasn't outside of the car. He wasn't visible for people. I'm grateful that he was concealed. It was heartbreaking for us, obviously. Um, but I'm grateful that, you know, there weren't people there able to just take pictures of, you know, yeah, the remains or anything like that. So I was grateful for that. But then again, we had to wait for pathology. They finally came. It took them quite some time. And obviously, because we're human beings, we still attached to the flesh. We felt really sad that he sat there for a very long time. Um, Even though he wasn't feeling anything, we know that. But you still feel kind of like sad that he's like there the whole time and you just want him to be moved away and all of that. We just kept like thinking like he's so cold. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so that happened. I was very confused by myself in that situation. I have seen traumatic things quite a few times. I didn't realize I was so traumatized by those things because of the work that I do. Obviously, I'm a medical doctor. I've worked in the emergency department. But I've always been clear about this, even to my family members and my partner, especially, that I don't like seeing people suffer, right? So I will never watch somebody getting beaten. I will never watch somebody getting killed. I will never watch an accident where you can obviously see someone has been hurt, right? I don't like seeing those kinds of things. When the body comes to me, it's fine. I can deal with it. But I started to realize then in that moment, because I had a weird out of body experience where I was really, really struggling. I was really, really struggling in that moment, like visualizing the car. I was quite scared. And I was like kind of paralyzed by fear. And I was just like confused, like, why am I so scared? And then even after that, when I realized that, oh, this is somewhat of a trauma, is that I could visualize the whole process. I could visualize everything. I could visualize how his face is resting, how his eyes are resting, how they're going to move him. I could visualize the body bag. And I actually didn't want to see it, but I could visualize it. So I left before I actually had to see it in reality because I didn't want it to be a reality for me in that situation. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's what happened. Anyway, so that was really hard, really, really hard. Um, the person we lost played a very big role in our family. I mean, everybody plays a big role, really, honestly, they do. He was just very sweet and he had a beautiful light. Never could have imagined that at such a young age, the age of 14, we would lose him. In our family, we've never had to deal with a tragedy ever. We've never lost anybody to an accident or anything like that. So for us, it was very shocking. Everything felt very new. We're very private, very intimate. Now, all of a sudden, we're very exposed. And I know you'd say it's funny that I'm saying we're very private, very intimate when I'm an overshare, but my family is very private. You will never see me really post a lot about my family because we're very private people, right? So we felt really exposed in that situation. It was painfully painful way of being exposed. Um, so yeah, after that I got home and I was in pieces. Whew, honey. I was so devastated. I was devastated for his parents, whom are my aunt and my uncle. Very devastated for them. But they've taught me a lot in this short space of time. Um, and I think well, I know where he is, but I think where Letabo is, he's really proud of his parents. Wow. Honestly, they have shown me that God is in the room. If anybody was not a believer before, it's especially in our intimate circle, I know after this experience, they will become a believer. Because that kind of strength is not man made, it's definitely God made. Um, and here I'm going to just tell you about something that I listened to the other day that really made me look at things a little bit more differently. Um, so I was watching the Rich Homie Kwan's memorial. No, actually, I wasn't watching it. I saw a snippet on TikTok, very random that I'd even speak about this. But his friend, Young DC Fly, I hope I'm saying it right. He said a wonderful speech. And one part of the speech where I felt like he was actually preaching was where he speaks about how there's two types of people, um, and there's two types of questions which will determine where these people, will fall into. So the one question that the group of people would ask is, why me? Right? Why is this happening to me? Why do I have to suffer? Why do I have to go through this? And then he speaks about how the second set of people, their question is, God, What are you trying to teach me? How will this move me closer to my purpose? And he spoke about how the second set of people are showing obedience to God because you understand that no matter what, life has to end. That is a painful truth, but it is the truth and it is going to happen. But when you walk with God, you ask Him, what are the teachings and what must I do with it? If you are very stuck on the flesh and stuck in your ways and stuck on the external, you will internalize what's happening and think that there's such a great um, injustice happening to you. Um, Whereas if you really take it on as this is a part of your journey, um, you can even inspire other people to, you know, be strengthened by God. And my aunt has shown that. Like when you're speaking, I was like, this is my aunt. Like I didn't get it at first. I thought she'd be like falling apart. And the whole time she kept saying to us, I believe in God. And for me, it didn't make sense because I'm not that spiritually mature. I didn't understand it until I listened to this and I was like, wow, you know, things happen for a reason, right? When I listened to this and I understood, I'm like, oh, okay, she's being obedient because the way she is behaving is so inspiring. What she's saying is that I am fine because I believe in God. I am strong because I believe in God. I know He'll carry me. I'm hurting. I'll definitely be hurting. I mean, there's no other thing. I mean, obviously she's hurting, you know. She lost her child. She's so strong. She is so strong. And she keeps saying, I believe in God. I give it all to God. Sure. Moved. Completely moved by her. Completely moved by her. But yeah, so going back to the title, Grieving Now What? Um, so this was my second loss for the year in terms of losing people close to me. I then experienced a third loss on the week of his wake. So just before, 2 days before we had his funeral, I was so exhausted. So I lost my niece. Um, yeah, and I just, it felt so overwhelming. My sister and I were in so much disbelief because we really um, tried to be very close to each other during this time as much as we can. Um, it was, sure, I can't even explain to you guys. The exhaustion doesn't even have time for pain. Doesn't even have time for pain. It was just like so exhausted. Um, and I just felt kind of like surrounded by loss. And that kind of eats away at your optimism. But I'm going to speak about that a little later in this episode where I start to talk about the manifestations that have come with this loss. But yeah, so we then experienced that loss, and it just felt like a dark cloud was over us, right? You try to pray, but you just feel so heavy, feel so, 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 so heavy. And at the same time, there are people that I'm close to that are losing people um, and very significant figures in their lives. This is the very first time in my life where I've looked at a year and I said, I want this year to end. Even though I understand that logically it doesn't matter whether a year ends or not. If you're still going to be on a certain journey, it's still going to carry through, even if the day changes, right? But whoa, guys, I want 2024 to end. I want it to end. I just feel like we're under such a dark cloud. I don't know if 2025 is going to bring us sun, if it's going to bring us light. But I just want to get out of this year. I just feel so overwhelmed by loss, so overwhelmed by loss. And at the same time, a lot of great things are also happening in my life. And I'm really struggling with the duality. I'm really struggling with that. I'm struggling with, having to show up when I feel like I really want to be hidden. I want to hibernate. I just want to sort through my mind. I want to sort through my feelings. And that's why I really had to do this podcast. Um, and although it's still very premature in my journey of grieving the year, and not just grieving people, but just grieving, um, the fact that I have to be a different person now, because with grief, with these kinds of situations, comes a lot of change. Um, and with that comes grief on its own. So now I want to talk about some of the manifestations, because I want to let you in on where my headspace is in different parts of my life after this harrowing time that I faced. So, grief will manifest itself in different ways in you, right? You can have physical manifestations, which is things like fatigue, muscle pain, throat pain, um, your chest being tight, sorry, and other things. Okay. Then you'll have emotional manifestations where you are feeling anxious, you're feeling sad, right? Very tearful. You're feeling depressed, you're feeling hopeless, Maybe you see, maybe you are feeling very irritable. Yeah, those are some that I can remember. And then you can also have behavioral manifestations. So, how you behave around people, how you relate with people. You might find that you want to really um, be a recluse, you want to be in your corner, you want to hibernate, right? You might find yourself very sentimental. You might find that you want to be more social. You might find that you're judging people for how they're grieving because you're sharing the loss, right? Um, yeah, so those are some that I can remember. And then you have spiritual manifestations where maybe you feel more religious, more spiritual. Um, or you could actually feel like life has no meaning, which is one of the things that I have been struggling with, that I know I'm going to start to take care of. So for me, in the beginning, it was mostly physical. Obviously, it was the crying, mostly physical and emotional, right? The crying, sadness, and all of that. The ones that have stuck now is anxiety. I've spoken about how I'm generally kind of anxious. Oh, but the anxiety now, guys. A phone call for me is always a scary thing to pick up, especially from my family. I don't know why. Well, I know why, but I don't understand why my mind won't get out of that. I'm just thinking of the worst the whole time. I'm so pessimistic, which is making me so anxious, right? I found myself very irritable and sensitive at the same time. Very irritable. So, because I'm anxious, if when I answer the phone, if you take a very long time to get to the point, I get really annoyed, because I'm thinking that you're going to tell me that there's going to be bad news. And I know it's because after the child passed away, I didn't think we were going to have another death. I didn't think we are going to go through something else. And I just kind of felt let down in that moment. And it just kind of felt like, oh, okay, well, like anything can happen now, right? And I mean, obviously, we understand that anything can happen, but when you actually face the reality that, oh, anything can happen, it's just makes you a little bit more anxious, right? So that's something I've been dealing with quite a lot. I'm very fixated on death. I've always been fixated on death, by the way. I've always been very fearful of my own death. I once went through a very weird phase. I think I was 17, where I was just very fixated on death, and it would give me nightmares. I was just so scared. I just kept thinking about death. So now that's kind of like brought back um, that fixation again, that preoccupation with thinking about death. Oh, so this one's gonna die. This one's gonna die. Like I am just like always so fearful. Like with my partner, when he leaves the house, I'm just like, "Ugh, hope he'll be fine." With my mom had a health scare. Oh my God, she had a health scare a week after the funeral for my niece, and I thought she was gonna die. I was an hour away from her, and she was alone in the house. And my mom has health challenges, and she said that the ambulance couldn't hear her. Then I thought of the worst. I thought she was having a stroke, and I was busy at a work function, and I was actually the MC, and I was the program director of that function. And my sister contacted me and told me that mom needs an ambulance like immediately. I panicked. Oh my God. I was panicking, but I wasn't moving. Oh my God. If there's something that I need to work on is my crisis management. This has honestly shown me that I'm kind of slow when it comes to crisis management. I'm very fast with other things, but I get easily overwhelmed, and I don't allow myself to be on go mode. I mean, I almost got into an accident because I wasn't thinking, because I was just trying to get to her. And I was so far. My mom lives in Pretoria. I was in Turfontein. I was just like, "Oh my God, is this another thing that's just gonna happen? Because everything is just happening. Is this another bad thing that's gonna happen?" Yeah, and I was just like, that made me so anxious. I was an hour and 5 minutes away. Now the doctor brain comes in, and you just think to yourself, okay, if she's very low on sugar, the brain can only live so long without sugar, you know? If she needs CPR, I'm very far. I won't be able to reach her on time. I think when I was 14 minutes away, I just said to myself, well, you just need to let it go. There's nothing you can do. You can't fly to her. There's nothing you can do. And my sister at that time, she was just so calm, very inspiring to me. But yeah, very anxious, very, very anxious. And with that comes a feeling of hopelessness, because when you are thinking of the worst constantly, you never give yourself a moment of reprieve, and that will start to build up feelings of hopelessness, right? You just think like, oh, what's the point to life? If people are just going to die, if I'm just going to continuously go through this amount of pain. Oh, but there's going to be more pain because even more significant people, people that are part of my daily routine, where if I lost them, I'll feel very lonely in life. Um, you know, if they're gone, how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to move from that? So, yeah, that's the personal part. The romantic and parenting aspect of it, post grief, or in this grieving stage, is that I've become very sentimental now, almost to a fault. I'm like hoarding now, very, very sentimental. Like I hug Nia very tight, very, very tight. Um, I leave lingering kisses. I think if you watch the Aisha episode where she speaks about how on her wedding day she believes that people should have a lingering kiss, a lingering peck. I leave lingering kisses with my partner. I think about everything. I'm very sensitive about that because I'm in that state where I'm very fixated on death, I'm always thinking like, oh, this could be the last day. I need to make sure that, what I do counts. I'm more sensitive to guilt. What I mean by that is if I do something wrong, if I speak to my partner in the wrong way, if I'm myself, right? If I'm myself and I'm irritable or I'm a little bit impatient, then I feel really, really guilty after that. Um, I've been guilty before, but like I feel like even more guilty if I can't be present with my daughter. There was a time where I was really crying a lot. I literally couldn't actually really spend time with her. I couldn't like focus with her, and I felt very guilty about that. So yeah, more sensitive to guilt. I also feel like the weight of loving this people is so heavy to carry because once again, because I'm fixated on the dead, I'm just thinking like, where will this love go if I had to lose them, you know? And this part where I've written here, I feel audacious. So this is actually inspired by a conversation that I had with a friend of mine who also lost someone very close to her and dear to her in a tragic way. And she said that once um, she started dealing with the grief, some of the things that came up in her is that she felt like she had a lot of audacity to have children. She had a lot of audacity to care for so many people because she's going to have to deal with so much pain if she loses them, you know. And I also feel the same. I feel kind of audacious to even think about expanding my family because you're, damn, it just for me right now, because I'm still in the state of, fixation with the death and the anxiety. Um, it's like I could bring another person on this earth and they have the potential to devastate me if I had to lose them. And then with family, I'm feeling more connected. So, yes, there's a light to the end of the tunnel. I'm feeling way more connected to them. It's sad that we had to be connected by this, by shared grief, but sure, way more connected. I want to be with them more than I want to be with friends, where it was the opposite for me for a very long time. It's kind of made me prioritize things differently and people differently. I'm inspired by them, as I shared with you, especially my aunt and my uncle, and my cousin, who was my baby cousin's brother. Very inspired by them, inspired by the strength that they've shown. Um, and I'm also inspired by the fact that they've been able to laugh. My family and I were very funny. We're really hilarious. If you guys think I'm funny, if you know me personally, you would know my family is very funny. And just that we can still have those moments of just being funny and, just, yeah, just being us and like laughing, very inspiring to me. Um, and that's been kind of the light side of being fixated with death because now I see that, okay, fine, it's going to be hard, but there will still be moments of happiness. There'll still be moments of joy. There'll still be moments of humor. I won't completely lose that when I have to face a more significant death. Um, and yeah, I just want to spend way more time with my family. That's what this phase has kind of done with me. Now, with my friends, I feel very blessed with the people that really showed up for me. Very, very blessed. This was also a good lesson for me. I lost a friend because I didn't show up for her. Um, I didn't have the capacity to show up for her. And I'm not making excuses. I literally didn't have the capacity. But now I truly understand and I empathize with why she needed me in that moment and why she didn't want to have to be in a situation of asking me. Because when you are in this kind of situation, right, you don't feel you don't feel like you have grounds to ask anyone for anything, but you need people. So you kind of leave it up to them to show up for you, which can also be unfair to the other person, especially if you then have expectations and you're not communicating those expectations. But it's difficult to communicate those expectations during this time. So this was a good way for me to really understand the kind of headspace that she was in and why she couldn't communicate it with me, because now I'm in that situation. And obviously, I want to play devil's advocate. We all have to understand that people process things differently, right? And they understand things differently. Um, and it's important to communicate your expectations. But once again, I'm just going to say it's difficult. So that's been the confusing part of it, with people that I felt like they didn't really show up. Um, the confusion has been, did I do enough to share my expectations? How should I navigate this? Um, should they have known better? It's very confusing. It's very, very confusing. But someone said something very important to me, um, that when you go through things like this, it's very important to not fixate on who's not there, because it'll make you feel very lonely and you will lose out on experiencing the people who actually have shown up, the people that God wanted you to be there with, right? Yeah. So that's been the confusing part. Um, and it's also obviously shown me that I have a new sense of responsibility. And I've spoken about this even before, but I have a different sense of responsibility when it comes to my friends, because I've seen what it now takes to put together a funeral. This year was the very first time I've ever been involved in things like that, so I didn't know. So now that I've been sensitized to that, I can now understand and really appreciate the burdens that my friends will have to face or have faced in their families. And, just even simply taking a bucket of scones would really make a huge difference, which they really did for me. Just showing up on the one day where uh, they can have a breakaway from the grief by seeing you. And what I mean by that is, when I saw my friends being present, I wasn't so overwhelmed by the grief as much anymore, because they showed me that there's still life, there's still hope, yeah, and it's really great to have people who are part of your routine be there to show you that we're still going you're going to be able to come back to this. You're going to be able to be strong again, we're here, we'll strengthen you. That was really great. Also, another thing is, I've also realized that I found myself in a lot of online friendships with people that are very dear to me. We are spending a lot of time on our phones, and because we see them on stories, and because we'll probably respond to the odd DM, or we see them posting on their feeds, we feel like we're seeing them. A friend of mine shared with me that she realized that we haven't seen each other in a year. But at the same time, it feels like she's seen me, but physically, we actually haven't spent intimate time together, in person time together. And social media is giving us a false sense of connection, but we're not really connecting with each other as much as we should be, because we're spending a lot of times on our phone and we're not really connecting with each other in person. Yeah, so after this, I realized that, because I also lost a lot of time with, the family members that I lost, because there was that false sense of connection. Because, oh, you see a picture when they go to a resort or whatever, and you feel like you're seeing them, but you're not spending time with them. So yeah, that's one of those manifestations. And then obviously my work life, there's been a manifestation. I feel very lost at work. I didn't realize that taking 2 weeks off to grieve and to actually deal with the things that I had to deal with, because I had to put together my niece's funeral, that I would come back and things would be completely different at work. Our work is very fast paced, so that made me feel very lost and kind of overwhelmed. But now that I'm back, um, my colleagues have kind of strengthened me. I'm very glad I'm back at work. I dreaded it at first, but I'm so grateful I'm back at work because they've kind of like ignited that fire back in me. And that's why I can sit here and actually have a podcast with you guys. Because for a long time, I thought, how am I actually going to sit and do a podcast? How am I going to sit with a guest? And that's why I've stopped the guests because I don't want to I don't want to have a conversation that I know I'm not going to be present in. Um, but yeah, I've been thinking like, how am I going to apply for work? How am I going to, you know, um, do content creation? And going back to the office and having to do tasks and completing tasks have made me feel kind of like hopeful again. Um, as much as it's been overwhelming, but having the ability to problem solve with my team and just us going through things together has just, honestly, it's really uplifted my spirit. It's not done the opposite like I thought it would have. No, definitely it's uplifted me completely. And I'm so grateful to the people that I work with. So, so grateful to them. They've given me a new sense of energy. They've really renewed, yeah, they've renewed my energy. I just feel alive again. I really do. But yeah, I'm about to wrap up now. Sorry, guys. There's been a lot of ums. This is almost like a very publicized journal entry. Lots of growing up with this whole situation. I've realized I need more funeral covers, definitely. I've realized that as much as I'm fearful of death, as much as I'm anxious about it, I still have to plan for it. And especially us Black people in South Africa, I feel that our funerals are very expensive. Um, Death will always be there. Yes, the timing can be a shock, but we need to start preparing ourselves better. I need to start preparing myself better. I felt very unprepared, very, very unprepared, very unprepared. And unfortunately, that meant that I had to dip into my savings. So that kind of like obviously impacted my journey to the aisle, but I would do it 10 times over. And this brings me to my third point in that um, I'm prioritizing things differently. These external things don't matter as much, right? What matters is making sure that the people I care for are okay. And that's why I would do it 10 times over. Um, yeah. And then I also realized that I need to actually make sure that in the event that I pass on, that my child is very well covered. So I'm spending a lot of time, um, you know, preparing my documents, speaking to my financial advisor, because I've realized that I can't leave things to chance anymore, whether I like it or not. I have to be an adult. I am fighting it. But this year has been a huge eye opener. And in terms of the journey to the aisle, I also don't want my partner to suffer if I had to pass on before him because I couldn't get my affairs in order. He's got his affairs in order. And I realized that, we also need to be very clear on both of our affairs. I don't want if he passes on before me, oh, sadly enough, if he had to, I don't want us to have unnecessary conflict in family because we didn't have the uncomfortable conversations when we were supposed to have them when people were alive. And I really think that part of this adulting thing is actually, doing the most uncomfortable things, doing the hard things. And this year has literally been the year of me being, how can I put it? Being pushed, yeah, to grow up. Yeah, lots of growing up, lots and lots of growing up. And then obviously, I will be going to therapy. Yes, I definitely will be. I definitely will be, especially to deal with the manifestations that I shared with you guys. Um, and I'm going to be doing it not only for myself, but especially for my marriage and for my friends, for my parenting, for my family, just so that I can navigate life just from a place of abundance again and not a place of lack and not feeling a little bit like things are meaningless. I'm much better, much, much better. And I'm much better because I'm talking about it. I'm much better because I've let people know where my headspace is. But I do understand that it's not going to be enough. Even this is not enough. I will actually need professional help in terms of giving me, coping methods, especially because things are still going to continue to be hard at times. I'm still going to face death. And I don't want to see myself so devastated that I struggle to come back, you know. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Sorry, guys. I hope the episode is something that can bring you some sort of value. That's also the beauty of podcasting. You get to really get into my head, and you get to see that my head is sometimes really muddled up, like it is right now. And that's just the truth of it. This is literally the vulnerability of where I am in my life right now. I am happy. I don't want you to listen to this and think that I'm not happy. I am happy. I genuinely am. Um, but I also feel grieved. Yeah. Or aggrieved. Yeah. I am feeling bereaved, rather. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. I'm done, guys. Finally. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope I see you once again next week, Wednesday, where I'll be telling you guys about my weight loss journey and how it's really changed my mindset and actually how it's also impacting me positively in this journey that I found myself in, where I'm grieving. Yeah. And I can't wait for you to hear it. And I can't wait to see you next week, Wednesday. Okay. Bye, Chomi.